Nathan, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me, Michael. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Uh, Nathan Miller is the founder and CEO of Rentec Direct, an Oregon-based property management software company servicing thousands of real estate professionals nationwide. A real estate investor and landlord himself, Nathan launched Rentec Direct in 2007 to help landlords, property managers, and real estate investors operate their rental businesses more efficiently. Over nearly 2 decades in business, Nathan has bootstrapped Rentec Direct into the third largest software platform in its sector, maintaining full independent ownership without any outside funding or debt. Rentec has been named to the Inc. top 5,000 companies list and the fastest growing private companies in America for 9 consecutive years and has been recognized as one of the top small businesses in the country by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Nathan is passionate about leveraging technology and innovation to advance the rental industry and empower real estate professionals to thrive. So, Nathan, first and foremost, tell me how you started with all this.
Yeah, it was some time ago, almost 2 decades ago now, 2007, and I was a landlord myself. I had a different job. I was in the tech industry, working in internet service field, and through that time, I was able to earn enough money to buy a property, and then that turned into another property. I was able to reinvest the um, the growth of the first property into the second one. I ended up with about 5 or 6 properties, and I was managing them myself. I was being my own landlord, doing my own maintenance, tracking my own late fees. And after about 5 or 6 properties, it kind of starts to be a lot of work. You're keeping track of a lot of
Yeah.
people and who's late and what's wrong and what's broken, and you start making mistakes. Is what happens when you get to about that size as a private
Or,
landlord.
or as you start growing, your inefficiencies become exponentially more exposed.
Oh,
And you're like,
absolutely.
my old system doesn't need to be optimized. It needs to be torn down and redone.
Well, yeah, and consider I'm working a full-time job. I'm working like a
Right.
50-hour a week job at the time. So I'm doing this all, as time allows. And it just turned out, it turned out to be too much work. So I just, like anyone would do, I went online, went to search for a software application that might help me out, make managing rental properties easier because it had to exist, right? 2007, things have been around for a while.
Right.
And I just couldn't find anything. There was a couple, but they were just like prohibitively expensive. And then there was a couple others
Mm.
that were like way too immature. And I taught myself how to program years before this. And just knowing how to program, I was like, you know what? I can just make something that's going to help me out. It's going to make my life easier, keep track of everything the way both me and my CPA, need things
Yeah.
to be kept track of. And so I just wrote, the first version of Rentec Direct and made it available on the internet for free because,
Wow.
I like creating utilities and I like helping people and making people more efficient. So with me as a model, I created the first version, threw it online, let anybody out there that was similar to me, private small landlords, just use the software. And it didn't take long before a lot of people were using it. There was hundreds of people using it, and they're asking me, hey, it should do this, it should do that. Who do I call for support? And at that time, again, still working a full time job. This was just my early morning before work hobby. I didn't have the bandwidth to do that, but I was getting enough requests and had enough people using the software that I felt like now's the time. I'm going to actually incorporate. I'm going to hire an employee and turn this into a company. And that was the birth of Rentec Direct.
That's honestly an honest answer, an awesome answer. And I have so many points I want to jump on. First and foremost, the abstract skills you get from computer science are just beautifully transferable to different disciplines. And someone like yourself who went from one industry to another, where the people in your industry and your competitive landscape aren't necessarily computer scientists, and like they're not going to be problem solvers like the way you're trained to be. So taking your skills from one industry to another is quite insightful. And yeah, you're amazed. It's amazed how you're amazed how certain industries are just mired by bureaucracy and inefficient systems, and they brute force their way through problems. And it's like someone like you saying, hey, there's more efficient ways to do this. Um and I also love how you kind of subscribe to the give then ask model by making it free and showing people that you can offer them something better. instead of them asking them to pay up front and saying, you're only here because I'm giving you value. I really appreciate that as well. So
Thanks.
just by your story of how you came here tells me a lot about probably how you operate your company today. Um, you also touched upon something very interesting because it's kind of like when you're a programmer and you're making the dollars, it's the labor. And then you kind of start to head into this more like residual system of like rentals and growing outwards and building wealth. It's a different, it, usually like those mindsets and like just making your dollars and then building wealth, I think are two completely different sets of skills. And yeah, a lot of that then comes down to the conversation of scalability as well. So there's just so much going on here that you just threw at me, and I found it amazing. But let me ask you this: I mean, did you like programming when you
I
were doing it?
I loved it. And in fact, the job I had before I formed Rentec wasn't a programming job, but I was a systems administrator for an internet service,
Mm,
which most of the time you're managing servers, you're building servers, you're
yeah,
administering them some way or another. But what I found that I really liked to do was write things on the servers to automate tasks. And in order to do that, you have to kind of learn how to program. And even if you're
right,
managing a server, it doesn't mean you can't write a little program which makes automating some tasks on that
yeah,
server, possible. So I kind of taught myself how to do that. And for anyone listening who is familiar with Linux servers or Unix servers, I wrote programs in shell script that I wrote a whole billing application in shell script, which is insane. Anyone listening to this would be like, no, you didn't. That's you don't do that.
I do shelling. I do this all the time, like all day.
Awesome.
I build servers optimized for WordPress, but yes,
Oh, awesome.
yeah,
You've been there, but I went through that whole process, and it's because that's what I learned. I taught myself how to do shell scripting because you can like make things. You can put 10 commands into one basically on a server, and I kept expanding that into an entire billing system, and then I wrote a ticketing system. And it turned out the one downside with shell scripting is you don't have database access, so you're kind of limited on
right,
how much data you can store and how quickly you can access it.
right,
So there was a point where I was like, well, I have to learn a real programming language that is going to access databases, and that's where I taught
yeah.
myself PHP at the time.
Nice. PHP, the most annoying language, yet it runs almost all the internet. Uh,
Yeah,
but here's the thing, even if like you're not going to make the program yourself, you at least understand the concept of like abstraction of just good, effective solutions, and your problem solving skills are just high level. And it allows you to filter through different softwares. It allows you to quickly realize, it allows you to say, hey, I have a problem right in front of me. I need to find the best tool. And a lot of these things require foresight. Just because something works right now, and you need to get that intuition, hey, what if 3 years ahead and I expand in this direction, I expand in that direction? Is this tool really going to solve that? And some people might not even make that calculation, and tearing down 5 years later and rebuilding is radically more complicated than spending a little more time at the start. So I know we're kind of like still dwelling on the past because I want to talk about what you do right now, but it tells me a lot about who you are as a person. It tells me a lot about how you think, and you kind of nailed like five things that I loved just by your opening conversation. So, yeah, this is all great. Now, okay, so how do you, what do you attribute specifically to your success today? Because like you mentioned, there are other people doing what you're doing. Real estate industry is a huge industry. Property management is not something that was discovered yesterday. So, why would you attribute the fact that you've grown as big as you have today? And I guess what I'm asking is, what's your uniqueness factor, Nathan, that separates you from your competitors?
yeah. Well, I think what got us here was it was part luck. Being in the right place at the right time. It was part the skill set that I had built over my prior career and being able to apply that to start a whole new company. And then the knowledge of being able to write a program to do what I wanted. Combine that with I had just gotten into real estate, a few years earlier. So I was able to combine my programming knowledge with my real estate knowledge in order to create an application that people needed at the right time. I think that's the beginning of our success. Getting it out there and getting people using it when there was very few options for private landlords at the time. Um, today there's a lot of competitors. We've got, everyone found out, oh, this is a cool market to be in. There's a lot of landlords, a lot of property managers out there. So what we've really done, we've grown to many, many thousands of customers, surveying, gosh, we're about 600,000 units across the US right now. And what truly sorry, it's a big word, differentiates us is, is we've kept it local. We're entirely self-funded. I like to call it completely organically grown. We've grown
That's
with our own
amazing.
funding right back into our,
And
um,
sorry to cut you off, Nathan, but you know what
yeah.
that tells me? That someone who's given like they give up a portion of their company, they get a $2 million investment, this and that. They have like brute force money, right? Like when you're poor, you're optimized. You learn how to do the most with very, very little. And those are the preconditions you need to really blossom and compete in a company that has well-established actors. So when someone tells me they're not funded, it also tells me a little bit more about how they
Oh,
operate internally. Because when you have funded money, it's like obviously you need to be somewhat efficient, but you're not trying to extract the absolute most amount of value with the capital that you have. So yeah.
yeah, we've always had to be lean. We've always had to be efficient, and I talk about it all the time. This is the thing with software. Software can really make both a company, any organization,
Yeah.
can make them so much more efficient because you can write. This is what I really love about software. Is you can spend an hour or a week writing a program, or we can write a feature into our software, and that week that we invest into creating a new feature can save our 8,000 clients 4 hours a day, or well, 4 hours a week, probably more realistically. But you multiply that times 8,000 times every single year, it's like such an exponential multiplier of what you put into it to bring that software out to them.
Yeah. It's sometimes the accessibility for growth that technology and computer science brings to various industries not only just makes it more efficient, it actually changes the industry to some capacity. And I think an example could be like Tesla. Like you look at Tesla, Tesla entered the automobile industry, but somehow they're more of a technology. Like their real value system is that they've revolutionized the concept of what it means to be in a car. They didn't just make cars better; they changed what cars mean. And yeah, I completely agree. That's the power of having good software when you're behind a good company. Now,
Absolutely.
we're talking about the good things, but if you were to go
Yeah.
to take a time machine and go back to 2007 when you first started the company, with who Nathan Miller is today, with all
Yeah.
the wisdom, would there be anything you would change, and what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, I think we did a lot of things right, and I love the company as it is today. So it's hard to say I'd change much, but I would say something that could have propelled us faster and helped us grow quicker in the beginning was to invest in marketing. As soon as possible. We had, we have this giant blue ocean of customers out there that needed a solution, and if we could have gotten in front of more of those customers in the first, 3 or 4 years of doing business, we could be 2 or 3 times the size we are today. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know, because I love our growth pattern. We had a very steady growth pattern over the years, but most people do want to grow their companies faster. That's kind of the goal in most companies. So I would
Yeah.
say that's probably the number one thing we could have done to grow faster at the beginning.
Hmm. Interesting. So what, you're nearly 2 decades in, and you mentioned about your steady growth. It's from what I've been reading, it's been double-digit growth year over year, with almost 10 straight years and being in the Inc. 500 list. Um, First question is scalability. So, what are the challenges you had in your early years? And as you scale up, it's like the ecosystem in which you operate in just changes. Like when you have 10 clients, you have a certain set of challenges. When you have 100 clients, it's not like it's just more of that challenge. It becomes a different environment in which you operate in. Can you tell me a little bit about how that growth pattern looked for you? And can you also talk a little bit about some of the challenges you've had throughout the process and how you overcame them?
Yeah. Yeah. I think probably the biggest thing in any company with growth is how do you scale? And it always involves employees, but how do you successfully take the skills that you have and the values you have and instill them in your new employees so they can continue working with your clients and working with the product the same way that you did, or at least the way that you want it to be portrayed. So I would say probably the biggest challenge in growth is getting getting that training done so your employees can do that. So they understand your values and they understand what your customers, what I want from my customers, I guess. Um, One hard thing for me was, not doing everything because I like it. I love programming. Like I told you earlier, it's such a fun thing, and I still do a little bit of it, but I had to choose to let go of that and hire, my first developer and ultimately a whole development department to do the thing that I love to do. And letting go of that is probably one of the hardest things in growth, I would say.
Hmm, interesting. Now, if what advice would you give to someone coming out of college who has the entrepreneurial spirit, but is like this economic landscape is just so overwhelming? What advice would you give to him to get the right skills to build a company like yourself?
I would probably tell them, look for what needs to be. That everyone thinks everything's already been invented, right? And but it hasn't. In 2007, I found out that the landlords needed software. A few years later, I found out the property managers needed the same software. So we pivoted and started, a branch of our software for property managers. And so I
Mm,
think any aspiring entrepreneur, they have to have a product, and you have to know that that product is going to work well and it's going to be adopted by customers.
mm,
So just having that mindset of, as you go through your day, what challenges do you have? And what challenges do your friends have and your parents have? And have any of those challenges not been addressed yet? Because if they haven't, that's a great opportunity for potentially a new company or a new product.
yeah, that's what engineering is all about. It's thinking of innovative ways to solve problems that exist today. And even though, a lot of them are getting solved as we grow, as with the growth of technology, this new platforms emerge and we're able to do more and more and more. And yeah, the opportunity never ceases to exist. So it's a great piece of advice. Now, Nathan, how can people get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is go to the website, which is rentecdirect.com. That's RENTEC direct.com. Click on About Us. You'll see pictures of all of our staff, me included, and you find out a little bit about us. But you can also find me on LinkedIn or any of the social networks out there. But our website would be the best place.
Nathan, I appreciate your time and wisdom, and I admire what you've done. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.